Friday afternoon, so welcome to another exciting edition of Reading with Mr. Eble. So again, we're going to continue on with Watchdog. So today we're going to be reading chapters 9 and 10. It's a little bit longer, two chapters today than we've usually been doing, but we'll be about halfway through the book. We probably will be finishing it next week. If not, probably the week after that. So here we go. Chapter 9. 4 hours later, both Tara and Daisy seemed satisfied. Tara flopped down beside Vic, who was lying on an old carpet. He'd napped and watched them work on and off. Daisy disappeared through the doorway that led downstairs. She looked better, her seams were tighter, and she moved more quietly. No metal parts rubbing together. She still resembled the world's ugliest patchwork quilt, though. Her parts had come from a bunch of domestic bots, which came in all different colors. Off in the distance, an ambulance wailed. "We have to get out of here," Vic said. "They'll come back." "What's the difference where we go? They'll know right where we are." Vic jolted upright. He'd forgotten about the tracers in their arms. "Don't worry, Daisy will protect us," Tara said. "She can't protect us from everything. They might have guns." Vic regretted the words as soon as he said them and tried to walk himself back. "They'll probably leave us alone." Tara stared at him, wide-eyed. "Except they won't. They're not the sort of people who think, 'Okay, we're even. They'll just keep coming after us and coming after us.'" They had to get those tracers out of their arms. Only, they weren't big things you just take out. They were chips, small enough to travel through the tip of a needle. So why had East run off so quickly? Why hadn't she been afraid of Tiny coming after her? Vic smiled. Because she and her friends stole domestic robots, and all domestic robots had tracers. They must know how to deactivate them. He stood. "We have to find East. She can get rid of those tracers." "You think?" "Daisy," Vic called. Daisy appeared on the fire escape ladder. "We're taking a trip." The problem was, Vic had no idea where East lived. It wasn't like he could look up her address in a directory. All he could think to do was walk around and ask people, even though he hated talking to strangers on the street. It was getting dark. Normally they avoided the streets like the plague after dark, but with Daisy around, Vic felt a wonderful sense of freedom. The scary-looking people who hung out on the street corners at night didn't look very scary with Daisy at their side. After a few blocks, Daisy began to range farther from them, doing little reconnaissance trips the way she'd done when she was nothing but a wee bot. She waited outside while they went into Peary Pawn. Mert, the shop owner, raised her white eyebrows when she saw who it was. "A little late for the two of you to be out, don't you think?" Vic explained who they were looking for, leaving out a lot of the details of why. Mert had no idea. There are probably 50 chop shops like that in the city. Most are south of here, but you don't want to go anywhere near that part of town. Sharing a half-box of saltines Mert gave them, they headed south. Vic knew the odds of finding one person in an entire city were close to zero, but he didn't know what else to do. They had to find East. Before long, they hit a sacrifice zone, where huge mounds of twisted steel beams and concrete blocked their way, and they had to skirt around it. Some parts of the city had gotten so broken down, they just knocked down all the buildings. Supposedly, the city was going to clear it all out someday and build parks or something. As they turned a corner, they nearly bumped into three guys, all with long hair bleached ghost white. The one in the middle, who was tall and stocky, held out a gloved hand. "Whoa, what are you munchkins doing on my street?" Vic looked around. Daisy had chosen a bad time to go on one of her jaunts. "Just looking for someone. Do you know a girl named East?" "What do I look like, the Yellow Pages?" The big man curled his fingers at Vic. "Give me the backpack and empty your pockets. Your girlfriend, too." "I'm his sister, not his girlfriend." Tara balled her hands into fists, turned her face toward the sky, and shouted, "Daisy!" The big guys looked at his friends. They all burst out laughing. "Daisy? Who's she? Your big sister?" He put his hands on his hips. "Don't make me tell you again. Backpack. Pockets." Vic heard the click of Daisy's claws on the sidewalk. He could tell the exact moment she appeared around the corner behind them, because all three of the guys' faces went as white as their hair. "This is our big sister, Daisy," Vic said. Mr. Tough Guy swallowed. "Where the hell did you get that?" "The Watchdog store. They were having a sale," Tara said. Vic was enjoying this so much. For the last 8 months, guys like these had terrorized them. He loved seeing them looking like they might wet their pants. "Like I said before, we're looking for a girl named East. She's a Brumby. Hangs out with some other kids who run a chop shop. They make watchdogs." The guys exchanged glances, shrugged, and shook their heads at each other. "Don't know her." Vic folded his arms. "Well, I'm sure you know someone who knows her. Since you own the street and all, you got a phone?" The guy reached into his back pocket. Daisy leaned forward and made a deep clicking sound until he showed her it was only a phone. "How about you two?" Vic asked. The other guys produced phones as well. "Good. Now call all of your friends until you find someone who knows East." They started dialing. Vic and Tara leaned against the wall as the three of them talked into their phones. "This is so cool," Tara said. "After this, let's make them dance." Not 10 minutes into their phone marathon, the guy on the left turned to Vic. "This girl East, she was gone for a while, just got back?" "That's her. Their shop's in an abandoned church on West Chestnut." After thanking the men for their help, Vic and Tara walked away laughing. "This is so great," Tara said. Vic looked to the watchdog, who was click-clacking along behind them. He wondered if, with all her skills, she had GPS or an internal map too. "Thanks, Daisy. Can you show us how to get to the church?" Daisy nodded and took the lead. Tara was right. This was so cool. Chapter 10. The church was called St. Boniface. It was a red-bricked building with 2 bell towers. The tall wooden front doors were unlocked. The chapel was a long, cavernous hall with a high curved ceiling. It wasn't hard to see it had once been gorgeous. Now it was strewn with trash, the walls crowded with graffiti. "East?" Vic called. No answer. Maybe the white-haired guy had been lying. Then it occurred to him. He was doing this the hard way. He turned to Daisy. "See if there are any people here." Daisy loafed off. Vic went to sit in one of the pews, but the benches were caked in dust and fallen plaster. He set his and Tara's packs on the floor between the pews and waited for Daisy to return. "I like it here," Tara said as she stared at the ceiling. "I don't. It feels like the roof could collapse any minute. It's creepy." "It's not creepy. It's peaceful." Daisy appeared through an archway to the side of the big hall. "Did you find anyone?" Vic asked. Daisy nodded and turned back the way she'd come. She led them down a staircase to a hallway lined with Sunday school classrooms and offices, then down a second, narrower flight of stairs into another hallway that was completely dark except for a sliver of light filtering out from under the door. Vic rapped on it, the steel door stinging his knuckles. "East, it's Vic and Tara." On the other side of the door, a steel bar slid out of place. Locks clicked. It swung open a few inches, and East's face appeared. Her hair a halo of dark curls, now that it wasn't tied back with a rubber band. She looked amused and a little stunned. "How did you find me?" Then she noticed Daisy, and her eyes widened. "Is that yours?" "Mm-hmm," Tara belled her. East opened the door wider. She was dressed in a sleeveless black t-shirt over oil-stained jeans. No wonder Alba snatched her up. She stepped out to take a closer look at Daisy. 2 other people appeared in the doorway. A black guy who looked about 15, with his arms covered in tattoos and an aluminum bat in one hand, and a skinny black kid with big eyes who was around 5. Vic recognized the older guy immediately. He was one of the jerks who'd pounded on the fire escape, laughing and saying he was coming to get them. "That's my little brother, North, and that's Rando," East said. "Who are you?" Rando let the bat sag to the floor, though he didn't look happy to see strangers at his door. "Vic, and this is Tara. We were stuck in the sweatshop with East." East turned. "They're the ones who got me out. Where's the little one that broke us out? You still got her?" Tara rested her hand on Daisy's head. "She's right here." Vic explained what had happened as East's eyes grew wider and wider. While he told the story, another kid appeared in the doorway, the white guy with long dreadlocks. He looked to be about 14, with a neck like a linebacker's. The other guy who terrorized them that night. East said his name was Torch. "I think I can guess why you went to all this trouble to track me down," East said when Vic finished his story. "The tracers, right?" "Can you get them out?" Vic asked. "We can deactivate them, yeah. Come on, let's get it done before you lead Alba right to my door." East led them into a long, low-ceilinged basement with cots along one wall, moldy hymnals piled on a beat-up piano, and a curtain drawn to reveal a shower and toilet toward the back. In the center were low benches piled with shop equipment, electronics, and robot parts. Torch grunted with disgust and moved to the far end of the basement. "What's your problem?" East asked. He wrinkled his nose. "They smell like garbage. So does their watchdog." East put her hands on her hips. "I don't know if you've noticed, but you don't smell too good yourself." "Compared to them, I smell like freaking rose petals." East closed her eyes for a second, shook her head. "Rando, can you fix them up?" Rando sauntered to one of the benches and retrieved a steel wand. $50 each. East cursed under her breath. "They helped me. They got me out of there, which is more than I can say for you." Rando shrugged. "So, they got you out. They didn't do nothing for me, and I'm the one with the equipment." East huffed in frustration. Fine, I'll owe you 20 each. Okay, your credit's good. Rando beckoned Tara over with his fingertip. You first, come on, which arm? When Tara pointed to her left arm, Rando turned her so her left shoulder was facing him. He ran the wand over it. All set, now you. Vic felt a huge sense of relief as Rando ran the cold steel wand over his shoulder. Now he was truly free of Miss Alba and Dixie. While Rando worked, East and Torch circled Daisy, sometimes bending to examine a detail up close. It's rough, but it's gorgeous, considering what you had to work with. East looked at Tara. You did this all yourself? Not at all, Tara said. Vic helped you? Tara shook her head. Daisy. Torch let out a harsh laugh. He had bulgy fish eyes, and when he smiled, his gums showed, along with too many teeth. Right, your watchdog helped design herself. And then she wrote a book while farting jingle bells. Hey, Daisy. Vic scanned the workbench. There was a half-finished raccoon-sized watchdog laid out. Can you fix that? Daisy went over and examined the watchdog for a moment. Vic felt a warm rush of anticipation. It's going to feel so good to shut this guy's big mouth after what he'd done at the roof. Daisy picked up a portable bandsaw and got to work. Vic turned to Torch. You want her to fart jingle bells while she works? Torch couldn't take his eyes off Daisy. That's got to be a trick. How the hell can a watchdog make a watchdog? Tara's a genius when it comes to electronics, Vic said. Bull. Torch gestured at Daisy. No little Brumby girl designed that thing's brain out of dump salvage. How are you getting it to do that? Vic hesitated. He wasn't sure he trusted these people enough to tell them the truth. Come on, Vic, we're on the same side, he said. If Alba has her way, we'll all be living in her sweatshop before long. Still, Vic hesitated. He didn't like Rando and Torch. He didn't trust them. They'd shown what sort of guys they were, rattling that fire escape while Tara screamed. They both had that walk, the same as every other kid who thought he was tough. Arms out away from their sides, swaying, a little bounce at each end of the step. Vic wondered if they practiced that in front of a mirror. All of Vic's friends just walked. They didn't try to walk cool or tough. They just walked. I try to walk cool every day. His former friends, Vic reminded himself, he hadn't heard from any of them in months. Although it was hard to keep in touch with someone who had no phone, no address, and whose only internet access was at the public library. Torch was standing over Daisy, watching her work. You know what? I could care less where she came from. What we can use her for, besides working on watchdogs. That's what I want to know. Tara put her hands on her hips. She's not yours, she's ours. Torch raised his hands. I said we. We includes you. I mean, Rando just helped you out, didn't he? East helped us out, Vic said. Rando wanted $50 to do something that took him 10 seconds. He decided it was time to lay all the cards on the table, so everyone knew where they stood. He also pounded on the bottom of our fire escape and yelled that he was coming to get us. East frowned. Huh? What are you talking about? Torch pointed at Vic. That was you? He threw back his head and laughed. Oh, we were just screwing with you, Rando said. What did they do? East looked from Rando to Vic. Tara wrapped her arms around herself as Vic recounted what had happened that night. You scared us, Tara said when Vic finished. You shouldn't laugh about it, butt heads. East was shaking her head. Unbelievable. You guys are pigs. She looked at Vic. I'm really sorry. Vic just shrugged. He felt uncomfortable in that shop, surrounded by stolen property. Hang out a while. You want something to eat? East asked. I'm really hungry, starving, Tara said before Vic could answer. She looked around. Do you have quesadillas? We don't have much of anything. Time's being tough and all. Torch raised a finger. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't you ask your watchdog to find some food? If he's so dang smart, that should be a snap. He's a she, Tara said. Vic narrowed his eyes. What do you mean by find? Where do you find food? Torch folded his arms, which made his biceps bulge even more. Fine, steal. Why don't you get her to steal some food? Vic shook his head. We don't steal. Rando grunted a laugh and rolled his eyes. Seriously? You think we're bad guys because we steal? People are on their way to the all-you-can-eat buffet look right through us when we ask for help. But we're the bad guys? He turned away. That's messed up. Could she steal quesadillas? Tara asked. Vic was so hungry. Plus he liked the idea of giving East something to repay her for the $40 she laid out. I don't think we have to give her a grocery list. Okay, but I hope she brings quesadillas. There was a knot in Vic's stomach as he approached Daisy, who was still working on the watchdog. Daisy, can you find us something to eat? Daisy nodded and set down the needle-nose pliers she'd been using. East unlocked and opened the door, and Daisy headed off. Vic perched on a stool beside the workbench. What if she hurt someone? Anyone stupid enough to get in her way deserves to get hurt, Torch said. Vic ignored the comment. Well, we'll share anything Daisy brings back with you, he said to East. He looked pointedly at Torch, hoping he got the message that the same wasn't necessarily true for him. He might have to grovel a little first. They quickly ran out of topics of conversation, now that everyone couldn't circle around Daisy and talk about her hip joints. Vic leaned against one of the workbenches and stared at a cupcake wrapper on the floor. Do you like dino trucks? North the little kid asked. He was sitting on a mattress, looking at Vic. His dark curly hair was short but uneven. It was pretty obvious East had cut it. Me? I guess. I used to play the video game when I was about 7. I had been old even then, but Vic could see why North was drawn toward a TV show about robot dinosaurs. Who's your favorite dino trucks? Mine's Revit. The name was familiar, but he couldn't remember what Revit looked like. It had been a long time since he thought about dino trucks. The door swung open. Daisy headed straight for Vic, lowered her head, and opened her mouth. A pile of dead pigeons spilled out. Torch and Rando burst out laughing. My mouth is watering just looking at them, Torch said. He picked up one of the dead pigeons and held it in Vic's face. Eat up, sport. Vic knocked the pigeon away, his face burning with embarrassment. I told her to find food, so she found food. I didn't tell her what kind of food. He got right up in Daisy's big silver face and looked into her big cartoon eyes, his nose almost touching the end of her long, pointed snout. We need food that's already cooked. Do you understand? Daisy nodded. Don't hurt anyone, even if it means you can't get the food. Understand? Daisy nodded again. Hang on. Rando went to a plastic cabinet set on one of the workbenches, opened one of its tiny drawers, and fished something out. He slapped it into Daisy's haunch, then handed Vic a video card. Portable camera. Now you can follow the action. As Daisy disappeared up the stairs, Vic watched the card. She trotted through the church, turned right out the door without hesitating, and headed up North Noble Street. When she reached the sidewalk cafe on the corner, Daisy paused. Diners in the cordoned-off outdoor area, all khakis and black dresses and shiny shoes, eyed Daisy, their forks frozen in midair. Daisy turned back, then headed up the crossing street and down an alley that ran behind the cafe, where there was a door leading into the kitchen. Everyone was gathered around Vic, watching the screen. When Daisy clacked into the kitchen, a cook standing over a grill shouted in surprise. What is that doing in here? A woman who looked like she might be the manager asked as Daisy clinked past. Daisy took a plastic takeout bag from a pile, letting the rest slide to the floor. She went to a long counter where steaming plates of food were waiting to be picked up by waiters. As cafe workers looked on, dumbfounded, she dumped the contents of the first plate into the bag. Shouts of surprise and anger rose as Daisy went down the line until all the plates were empty and the bag was full. No one tried to stop her, although the woman who might be the manager was on the phone, probably calling the police. Daisy put the handle of the bag in her mouth and trotted out into the alley. 10 minutes later, she was at the door with the bag. Tara gave her a huge hug and a kiss. Vic was tempted to do the same as he accepted the worn bag from her. The food was a steaming stew of sandwiches, casseroles, vegetables, cake, and quesadillas. No one complained because there was a ton of it. Daisy had swiped about a dozen plates. As soon as she finished eating, Tara made a beeline to the workbench, where she took advantage of the wide assortment of tools to mess around with Daisy's design as Daisy looked on. North went over to watch. We gotta get going in a couple minutes, Vic called to Tara. He didn't want her to get too comfortable. Rando and Torch were standing off near the door, talking, watching Daisy with their bellies full. They would like nothing better than for Vic and Tara to get comfortable, while they thought of uses for Daisy and ways to steal her away from them. Can I touch her? North asked Tara. Sure, Tara said. North ran his hand along Daisy's side. Can you play with her? Tara looked around, grabbed a filthy welcome mat from under the workbench, and dropped it onto Daisy's back like a saddle, covering a section of her jagged steel armor. She patted the mat. Climb on! East grimaced, then shouted, Be careful! As Tara helped North mount the ragged, fierce-looking watchdog. Once North was on, he leaned forward and grasped Daisy's neck. Can you give him a ride? Tara asked Daisy. Daisy took a few tentative steps. North cackled gleefully, so Daisy took a few more, moving more quickly. We're in the same boat, you and me. East was standing beside Vic, arms folded. She and North had the same dimples, the same sharp cheekbones. Which boat is that? We both have family to take care of. Vic couldn't argue with that, although in some ways it was Tara who was taking care of him. Sometimes when I talk to her, I hear myself saying things my mom used to say. East laughed. Don't jump on the bed. Wash your hands. Stop picking your nose. There's no room here, Tara called. It was true. Daisy was doing her best, but there wasn't much space for her to run. Let's go upstairs. Come on, Daisy. Tara ran to the open door. East stood. Come on, Mom. We better keep an eye on the kids. Vic followed her out. At least upstairs they'd be closer to the exit. North could get his ride, then they could say goodbye. Up in the main chapel, Daisy cut loose, racing around the pews, her movements so smooth, North barely bounced on the makeshift saddle. Listen, East said as they watched. I know you have good reason to hate Rando and Torch. They can be idiots. But the whole time I was in Alba's sweatshop, they took care of North. They fed him, even paid for a doctor one time when he got a respiratory infection. When you strip away all the immature antics, they're good guys. Vic pictured the pair, who'd been watching some show about a psycho clown trying to escape from a prison circus when they left. He tried to imagine liking them, but all he could see were two guys who would be school bullies if they were at school. I'll keep it in mind. East nodded. Like I said before, we're on the same side. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know? He's got a big-time beast who can protect us. We know the streets, and we know Alba. Vic didn't say anything. He had no interest in teaming up with these people, or anyone else. He just wanted to be left alone and have nobody bother him. Now that they had Daisy, they could count on those things. East was watching him, studying him. If Alba comes at you for messing up Tiny, she'll come at you like a wrecking ball. You're gonna need friends. Okay. He'd had friends, when his mom was still alive and he was in school. Wasn't sure where they were now, probably playing video games and munching on chocolate-covered pretzels in their air-conditioned bedrooms. He waved a hand to get Tara's attention. We better get going. Tara put her hands on her hips. Going where? To find a new place to live. We need to get set up so we can get some sleep, which would entail dumping their laundry on the floor and lying down on it. Tara helped North down and they said goodbye. Remember what I said, East said as Vic and Tara headed for the street, with Daisy following. A knot of tension in Vic's neck and shoulders relaxed as they reached the sidewalk. Why couldn't we stay there? Tara asked. Because A, they didn't invite us, B, they're criminals, and C, those two guys were looking at Daisy like she was a Christmas present someone left under their tree. Tara stared at a billboard advertisement for a new action movie, plastered on the side of a passing bus as if she hadn't heard him. You can count on me, I can count on you. We can both count on Daisy, Vic said. We can't count on Uncle Mason and Aunt Ruby, or our friends, or those thugs carving up stolen robots. We watch out for each other, and we keep to ourselves. He choked up because that was the truth. All he had was Tara and Daisy. I'm glad Daisy's one of the people we can count on, because when we only had each other, we ended up in a sweatshop. Vic barked to laugh. Smart Alec. He asked Daisy to scout around and find them a place to sleep. Maybe an apartment in an abandoned building. Daisy took off. Before they'd had Daisy, they didn't dare sleep indoors, where people like Rando and Torch could stumble on them. But with Daisy watching over them, they could sleep wherever they wanted. Now that we have Daisy, things are going to turn around. Because she can steal food for us? Tara asked. The question made Vic sting with guilt. That's only for emergencies. We need to figure out ways we can use her to earn money legally. Enough to rent a real apartment. With royal blue carpet and shell tile in the kitchen, and a white concrete bird bath in the backyard in the corner by the water recycler. Yep, just as good as the one we lived in with Mom. Felt good to be able to say that. Only without Mom, Tara said. Vic's throat tightened. I can learn to cook all the food you love, and we'll have movie nights where we throw all the pillows and couch cushions on the floor and lie in them the way we used to. I'd like that, she said. She looked a few feet to Vic's right. You're a good brother. A lot of brothers with a sister like me would have ditched her at a shelter by now. You know I'd never do that to you. You're stuck with me. Could kids rent an apartment? Vic didn't know. Maybe could pay some homeless adult to pretend to be their parent. First, though, he had to figure out how Daisy could make them some money. So, that is the end of Chapter 10. So we're done with Reading with Mr. Eble for today. So if you missed any of the previous wonderful episodes, they're on our Facebook feed. They're also posted up on our YouTube channel, so Keller Rangers. So y'all have a good rest of the day. Be safe. Keep taking care of each other. And remember, Rangers delay.